Today, we continue walking through the book of Mark. And today we're going to look at Mark chapter 2, verse 23 through verse number 28. Let me just read the text for you, then I'll go back and just tell you a few things. The Bible says, on the Sabbath, he was going through the grain fields, and his disciples began to make their way picking some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" So here it is, Sabbath day. Jesus and his disciples are walking to a location. And as they go through this grain field, the disciples are hungry. And so what do? They begin to pluck off the heads of grain, which the law actually gave them authority to do, to glean the wheat, to glean the barley in someone else's field. And so they're actually doing this, just walking through, passing through, getting them something to eat. However, there's a great problem. They're actually doing this on the Sabbath day. Now, friends, Jesus, he knew the law, and he knew that the 10 Commandments said, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. God had set apart one day from all the rest in order for men to do what? To rest, to worship, and to reflect on him. Okay, well, Jewish law, Jewish oral tradition, you know, God gives the 10 Commandments, and then there's 613 Mosaic laws. Well, then there's the extra. There's what's called the oral traditions. And what the oral traditions are, these are interpretations of the law passed down through generations. And what happens here is they begin to add to the commandments. The Jewish religious leaders, they add to the commandments, and they begin to put restrictions on commandments. And so when you think about the Sabbath day, there were many restrictions placed on the Sabbath. Think about some of these restrictions. There was a restriction on how far you could walk in a day. If you walked more than 0.8 miles, it was considered that you had worked. You could not pick up a spoon on the Sabbath day. To do so was considered work. Here's an odd one. You couldn't pick your nose on the Sabbath day. That was considered work to the Jews. Even today, there are strenuous laws on the Sabbath in Israel. If you go today to Israel and go just say to a hotel, they have a regular elevator and then they have a Sabbath elevator. So on the Sabbath day, Jews, to push a button in the elevator is considered work. So the elevators are set on automatic, and you get on and it'll stop at every single floor on the way up and every single floor on the way down so that you don't have to push a button. Jews, if you were staying in a hotel in Israel, the Jews on Saturday night, right before the sun goes down, they will go ahead and make coffee for you to drink tomorrow morning because they can't get up and make the coffee on Saturday. Because why? That's considered work. And so, you know, these kind of things are just, I mean, it's even still oppressive today. And this is the culture, this is the time, this is the people that Jesus lives amongst. And so they're passing through the grain field, doing what's legal, picking off the heads of grain, but they're doing it on the Sabbath day. And that is considered work to the Jews. And this becomes deeply, deeply offensive to the Pharisees, because in their hearts, Jesus is allowing his disciples to break the Mosaic law. And Jesus responds when they say, "Why are you allowing this?" Jesus responds and says, "Have you ever read what David did and those who were with him when he was in need and hungry? How he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar the high priest and ate the sacred bread, which is not lawful for anyone to eat except the priest, and also gave some to his companions." So Jesus directs them back to a story that they all knew well. They all revered King David. They all adored King David. They knew who he was. And there was a time in David's life before he was king, after God had anointed him, Saul was still on the throne. Saul is chasing him, and David runs down to Abiathar the priest. And when he gets there, he asks Abiathar, is there anything here to eat? And Abiathar says, well, there is the showbread in the temple. Well, the showbread was meant and only for the priest to eat. If you were not a priest, this was sacred bread, and it wasn't for you. However, Abiathar, in mercy, had given the bread to David to eat, and David had given some to his companions. Now, according to these Pharisees, what Abiathar did and what David did was break the law in that moment. However, Jesus knew that they didn't view it that way. Jesus knew that in their hearts, they viewed David as a hero. They viewed Abiathar as a hero. So Jesus brings this to mind and says, you don't condemn David. You don't criticize David. Why are you criticizing us? And listen to what Jesus says next. He says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Friends, what Jesus does there is he turns the entire Judaistic system up on its head. Jesus says, you have misinterpreted the Sabbath. God didn't make the man for the Sabbath as in a burdensome regulation and law that we have to fulfill in order to show our righteousness. Instead, God made Sabbath for the man, for us to be able to rest and for us to be able to reflect and for us to be able to worship. And all these burdensome laws and regulations was nothing what God had desired. This was a day for them. So yes, they're picking heads of grain, but it's for their own good and it's for their own benefit. And Jesus says this is what God the Father would want. Because in this moment, they're getting what their body needs to be refreshed and to continue doing the work of God. And then Jesus says what? He says, therefore the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Jesus says the reason they have the authority to pick the heads of grain is because I, the one standing before you, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. I'm the one who created the Sabbath day, and I'm the one that can ultimately give you rest. My guys, my disciples, they are not bound by those burdensome laws and regulations. They are free in me, and they find their peace and rest in me. And Jesus offers you the same thing today, friends. You do not have to continue working, fulfilling laws and regulations to try to please or appease him. No, you come to him by salvation and faith and find your rest and your peace in Jesus. May God bless you, and I look forward to our time tomorrow on New Horizons.